Welcome back to the deep dive. We're doing something a little bit different for you today. Usually, we're looking at modern tech stacks or maybe corporate history.
Right, or some kind of psychological study.
Exactly. But today we're going back in time, and I mean really far back. We're going to Westeros.
But not the Westeros that you might be picturing right away. We aren't talking about the War of the Five Kings.
No White Walkers.
Right, no White Walkers coming down from the north. We are actually dialing the clock back about 100 years from all of that.
So for context, if you think of that famous story as World War II, this is sort of the Belle Epoque.
That's a great way to put it.
It's the Edwardian summer before the trenches were dug.
It really is. We're looking at George R.R. Martin's A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, and specifically we're diving into the first novella, which is called The Hedge Knight.
And the vibe is just drastically different here.
Completely different. The Targaryens are firmly in power. Now there are no dragons around.
The last one died a generation ago, right?
Yeah, exactly. But even without them, the dynasty is totally secure. King Daeron the Good is sitting on the Iron Throne, and it's peacetime.
Which usually in fantasy means things are a bit boring.
Right, you expect peace to mean no plot.
But here it actually makes things so much more interesting. Because we aren't looking at this world from the top down. We aren't sitting in a small council chamber.
We're down in the mud.
Literally in the mud.
We're exploring Westeros through the eyes of a hedge knight, and I think we should probably pause on that term right away, because if you just hear it...
It sounds kind of nice.
Yeah, it sounds pastoral or charming. Oh, a knight of the hedges.
Like something out of Wind in the Willows.
Right, exactly. But the reality for you, as a listener to understand, is that it's brutal. The text defines a hedge knight explicitly.
It's a wandering knight without a master.
No master, no castle to sleep in, no peasants working your land, and most importantly, no lord to actually pay your wages.
So practically speaking, you are homeless.
You're a homeless man with a highly lethal weapon and a horse. That is your socioeconomic reality.
And the hedge part of the name
Comes from where they literally sleep. If they can't afford a spot at an inn, which is, quite often they sleep under a hedge just to get some shelter from the wind and the rain.
It really feels like the gig economy of feudalism.
Oh, absolutely it is.
You've got your tools, your sword, and your armor, and you're just driving around looking for day labor. We'll fight for food.
That is exactly it. Because your entire net worth, your retirement plan, your health insurance...
Everything.
Everything is tied up in your horse and your steel. If the horse dies, you are suddenly a beggar.
And if the sword breaks, you're a peasant again.
Right. It is an incredibly precarious way to live.
And that is exactly where we meet our protagonist, Dunk, and talk about a bleak opening.
It sets the tone immediately.
We aren't starting with a grand feast or some flashy tourney. We are starting with a shovel.
We're on a cold, rainy hillside. And Dunk is burying the only father figure he has ever known.
Sir Arlen of Pennytree.
Right. And the text does a lot of heavy lifting here very quietly. Dunk is huge. He's only 16 or 17 years old, but he's nearly 7 feet tall.
Thick as a castle wall.
That is how he describes himself constantly. But despite that massive size, he is so incredibly vulnerable in this opening scene.
He's digging this grave completely by himself.
And why is he doing that? Because he can't afford to pay a septon to say the holy prayers.
He has absolutely no money for a silent sister to prepare the body either.
No. It is just him, the mud, and the corpse of his mentor.
And his eulogy for the old man, well, it isn't exactly poetry.
It's rough.
He stands there and says, "You were a true knight, and you never beat me when I didn't deserve it."
Which sounds kind of funny to a modern ear, but it's actually deeply tragic. That is the bar for a good father figure in Dunk's life.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Sir Arlen took him out of Flea Bottom, which is the absolute worst slum in King's Landing. He gave him a shot at a real life.
But now Arlen is dead.
Yeah.
And we really need to talk about the inheritance here. Because usually in these stories, the hero inherits the magic glowing sword or some secret royal birthright.
Not Dunk. Dunk inherits inventory.
Inventory that is barely holding together.
Barely. Let's go through this item by item because it paints such a vivid picture of their poverty. First up is the livestock. He inherits 3 horses.
Which, honestly, to a modern ear sounds pretty great. If you own 3 cars, you're doing okay, right?
Right, but in this historical context, horses are overhead. They are massive liabilities until you can turn them into assets.
So what does he have?
He has the sway-backed stot, which is basically an old pack mule whose spine is giving out. Then he has an old palfrey named Sweetfoot.
That's the riding horse.
Exactly. And finally, he has Thunder, the war horse.
But Thunder isn't exactly a Ferrari.
Far from it. Thunder is a destrier, but he is old. He's an ex-tourney horse. And here is the real kicker about war horses.
They're expensive to maintain.
Incredibly expensive. A war horse isn't just a bigger version of a normal horse. It has a massive metabolic cost. You cannot just let a war horse graze on grass by the side of the dirt road and expect it to carry a fully armored man into a full-speed collision.
You need specialized fuel.
It needs grain. Heavy, expensive grain. It needs constant grooming and care. Thunder is basically a calorie-burning machine that Dunks just cannot afford to feed.
So he's inherited this massive mouth to feed. What about the gear, the armor?
The gear is even more telling of his situation. He gets a chainmail hauberk, and the text notes that Dunk has scrubbed the rust off it 1,000 times.
You know, I actually missed the significance of that line on my first read. I just thought, oh, okay, he's a diligent kid.
He is diligent, but think about the basic chemistry of it. Rust is oxidation. It is the metal literally eating itself.
So every time he cleans it.
Every single time he scrubs that rust off using sand and oil, the metal rings get a tiny bit thinner, tiny bit weaker. This is not the shining, indestructible plate armor you see in the movies.
Yeah.
This is a desperate, ongoing battle to keep the metal from just disintegrating. His protection is literally eroding away.
And the helmet has a huge dent in it.
An iron half-helm with a dent, which means it has already failed to deflect a blow cleanly at least once in its life.
The structural integrity is completely compromised.
Completely. So he has dying, hungry horses, eroding armor, and then we finally get to the liquid assets.
The actual cash, he counts it out. 3 silver stags, 19 coppers, and 1 chipped garnet.
If we translate that to modern terms, this is lunch money.
Yeah, it's nothing.
This is maybe enough to feed himself and those 3 horses for a week if he strictly rations it. He is 1 week away from total starvation.
So he is standing at this literal and metaphorical crossroads in the mud. He has options right. He doesn't actually have to be a knight.
No, he considers selling everything. He could easily sell the horses, the rest of gear, and just walk away.
He thinks about going to a major city like Lannisport or back to King's Landing.
Right, to join the City Watch, the Gold Cloaks.
Which would mean stable employment, a solid roof over his head, a steady paycheck every week.
But he doesn't do it.
Why doesn't he? It makes so much more sense.
Because of the dream, the idealized dream of true knighthood. He looks at Sir Arlen's shield, the one with the winged chalice painted on it, and he just cannot bring himself to give up that identity.
So he decides to take this massive gamble.
He decides he is going to claim knighthood for himself and head to the great tourney at Ashford Meadow.
Which is a brave narrative decision, but objectively it is an incredibly stupid financial decision.
Oh, financially it's suicide. He is betting his entire meager net worth on the absolute long-shot idea that he can win a joust against highly trained, well-fed nobles.
It's the equivalent of a street basketball player spending his last $5 on a bus ticket to go try out for the NBA.
The odds are astronomical, but he straps on the sword, he mounts Thunder, and he heads out on the road.
And that journey takes us right into the next key segment of our deep dive, the inn. This is where the story pivots from this bleak solo survival tale to, well, honestly, it becomes a buddy comedy eventually.
Eventually, yes. But their first meeting is not cute at all. Dunk stops at an inn just because he's starving and he sees a boy.
Set the scene for us with this boy.
Dunk is just looking for a hot meal. He walks into the yard and sees this stable boy bathing in a horse trough. And the visual description is vital here.
The shaved head.
Yes, the kid is bald, totally shaved head. He's skinny, maybe 8 or 9 years old, and he is covered in mud.
And his attitude is just off the charts.
Unbelievably arrogant. Dunk is almost 7 feet tall, he's wearing a sword, and this naked child in a trough is looking up at him like he's literal dirt.
He actually calls Dunk out on his outfit right to his face.
He does. He looks Dunk up and down and says, "You don't look like a knight." And when Dunk gets defensive and asks why, the boy points right at his waist. He says, "Your belt is made of rope."
Now, why is that such a massive burn in this world? I mean, a belt holds your pants up.
Because in this highly stratified society, clothing is language. It communicates exactly who you are. A true knight would wear a heavy leather sword belt, maybe studded with silver if he's doing well.
And a rope belt.
The rope belt is for a monk or a beggar. The boy is reading Dunk's socioeconomic status in a split second. He is effectively saying, "I see right through your little costume. You are poor."
That is an incredibly perceptive read for a random stable boy.
Exactly. It's the very first clue for you as the reader that this kid is much sharper than he looks, and things escalate quickly from there.
Dunk ignores him, goes inside to eat his dinner, and when he comes back out to the stable,
He finds the kid messing with his livelihood,
doing what exactly?
trying to steal the war horse, or at least he's playing dress up with it. The kid has managed to put on Sir Arlen's massive rusted armor, which swallows him whole, and he's trying to mount thunder.
So Dunk rightfully calls him a thief.
He does, he threatens him. But the boy doesn't flinch. He isn't scared at all. He just stares back, defiant, and says, I could ride him as well as you.
There is a level of fearlessness there that just does not fit a peasant orphan who should be terrified of an armed man.
It doesn't fit at all. But speaking of things that don't fit, we have to talk about the guy Dunk meets inside the inn.
The drunk, yes, we can't skip him.
The drunken dreamer. This is a very weird, brief little encounter, but it sets up so much atmospheric mood. Dunk is eating his lamb stew.
Which Martin describes so well that it literally makes you hungry reading it.
Always. And there's this well-dressed man just completely passed out, face down at the table.
Then the guy wakes up, sees Dunk's massive frame, and just completely freaks out.
It's genuine visceral terror. He physically recoils from Dunk and says, I dreamed of you. You stay away from me.
And Dunk just assumes the guy has the shakes. Delirium tremens from too much ale.
Dunk basically thinks, stay off the sauce, buddy. But for you tracking the deeper lore, this is a massive red flag.
Because in Westeros, dreams are never just dreams.
Right, dreams often mean prophecy. And we find out later that this drunken man is actually Daeron Targaryen, a prince of the royal blood.
And he dreamed that Dunk was going to be the literal death of him.
Yes. That is some incredibly heavy foreshadowing right out of the gate. But Dunk being Dunk just brushes it off.
He pays for his meal, leaves the inn, and actively tries to leave the annoying boy behind because he knows he cannot support a squire.
He rides off deep into the woods to set up camp for the night. But guess who shows up at his campfire a few hours later?
The kid. Just casually cooking a fish over Dunk's fire.
The boy who now introduces himself simply as Egg.
Which, given the completely bald head, is a pretty solid descriptive nickname.
It's very practical, and this conversation by the fire is really where their contract is signed, so to speak.
Dunk tries to send him away again. He's very clear. I have no food for you. I have no money to pay you.
But Egg is wildly persistent. He argues his own utility. He tells Dunk, I can cook your meals, I can mend your rusted armor, I can tend to the horses so you can rest.
And Dunk, who describes himself as thick as a castle wall, but who clearly has a heart of gold, eventually caves in.
He agrees to let Egg act as his squire, but strictly just for the duration of the Ashford tourney.
It's really driven by loneliness, isn't it?
Absolutely. Dunk has been profoundly alone since Arlen died in the mud. Having another human voice around, even a nagging, bossy little voice, is a massive comfort to him.
And Egg is incredibly bossy. He starts correcting Dunk's behavior almost immediately. He is clearly the brains of the operation, while Dunk provides the brawn.
It is a classic literary trope, but it works so well here because Egg's specific knowledge is highly suspicious.
He knows complex heraldry. He knows exactly which lords belong to which houses. He knows regional history.
And Dunk just assumes, well, he must have picked all this up working at the inn, listening to traveling merchants and knights.
Which is plausible on the surface.
Plausible, but very convenient. So the new duo is officially formed. They pack up and ride to Ashford Meadow together.
And this is where the scope of the whole narrative really expands. We leave the lonely woods and enter the grand spectacle.
The visual contrast here is meant to be jarring. Dunk is coming straight from the mud, the rain, the starvation, and suddenly he sees this massive display of wealth.
It's essentially a city made entirely of silk.
The tourney grounds at Ashford are described exactly like a high-end festival. Dozens and dozens of elaborate pavilions have been erected overnight. Bright, saturated reds, deep yellows, rich greens.
Huge flags and banners waving everywhere in the wind.
It is the absolute pinnacle of generational wealth on full public display.
And how does Dunk react to all this splendor?
He is terrified. This is severe social anxiety playing out in a medieval setting.
He's looking at all the famous sigils. The Lannister golden lions, the Baratheon crowns, stags, the Tyrell roses.
These are the great houses with their massive retinues, their servants, their shining armor, and Dunk looks down at his own rusted May rings and his frayed rope belt.
And he realizes instantly he does not belong in this club.
So what does he do? He hides.
He literally camps in the bushes.
He finds a spot under a large elm tree far, far away from the main noble pavilions, just so no one will see him and mock his poverty.
It's actually heartbreaking when you think about it.
Yeah.
He desperately wants to be one of them, but he is deeply ashamed to even be seen by them.
But he can't hide forever. He has actual work to do. He needs to officially register for the lists, and he urgently needs to fix his broken gear.
Which brings us to the stark economics of the tourney life, because competing in these events is absolutely not free.
Far from it. This is a brutal pay-to-play sport. He goes looking for an armorer and finds a man named Steely Pate.
I really love Steely Pate as a character because he perfectly represents the grounded working class of this fantasy world.
He really does. Pate takes one look at Dunk's dented old helmet and basically tells him this is total trash.
He had that great line. He says, "I make helms that look like helms, not winged pigs or queer foreign fruits."
He is a strict functionalist. Form follows survival.
But functional steel still costs hard money. Dunk needs a brand new helm if he actually wants to survive taking a heavy lance to the face.
And Pat Tane names a completely fair market price that Dunk simply does not have.
So we come to the great sacrifice.
This is the moment that really hurts to read. In order to pay for these essential armor repairs, Dunk has to sell one of his 3 horses.
He has to sell Sweetfoot.
The old, reliable palfrey, the exact horse that his father figure Ser Arlen rode for years.
It feels like a massive betrayal of Arlen's memory.
Dunk actually goes and talks to the horse. He whispers to her and apologizes for what he has to do. It highlights his deep empathy.
He isn't just selling a used car here. He's selling a loyal friend who trusts him.
But survival dictates he has to do it. So he goes and haggles with Henley, the head stableman, and manages to sell her for 750 silver stags.
But here's an interesting detail. He doesn't actually get paid in a giant sack of silver.
No, Henley pays him out in gold dragons.
And this is a huge moment for Dunk. He has likely never held a real gold coin in his entire life.
So what is the very first thing he does when handed the gold?
He immediately bites it.
He bites it hard.
Now, I've seen characters do this in 100 pirate movies and westerns. Is there actually real science behind biting a coin?
Yes, there are 2 distinct things he's checking for. First, pure gold is a relatively soft metal. If some scammer has taken cheap lead and just painted it gold, it will be hard against the teeth.
But if it's real gold,
your tooth should leave a tiny faint indent in the surface. But more importantly, he is also closely checking the edges of the coins.
for the clipping you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. In any economy where the currency's value is based strictly on the physical weight of the precious metal, a very common street scam was called clipping.
How does that work?
You take a sharp pair of metal shears and you carefully clip a tiny, almost invisible sliver of gold right off the rim of the coin.
And then you pass the coin off as full value.
Right, and if you do that to 100 different coins, you suddenly have a nice little pile of free gold dust that you can melt down into a new ingot.
But the clipped coins are now technically worth less than their stamped face value.
So if Dunk feels the edge and it's rough or irregular, he knows he's being cheated. This detail shows us that even though Dunk calls himself slow, he possesses serious street smarts.
He knows exactly how the wealthy world tries to cheat the poor.
He secures his cash, he pays Pate the armorer, he's finally got his safe gear. Now all he needs to do is sign his name on the ledger.
He walks over to the steward of the games, a guy named Plumber, and this is where he smacks face first into the wall.
The Great Wall of royal bureaucracy. Plumber is the ultimate gatekeeper here. He looks at Dunk, this giant scruffy boy in patched wool clothing, and demands his credentials.
He says, "Who made you a knight?"
And Dunk stands tall and says, "Ser Arlen of Pennytree."
And Plumber just looks at him and says, "Who?"
That response has to sting Dunk's soul.
It's way worse than just a sting, though. It's an automatic disqualification.
Plumber basically tells him, "Look, I don't know any Ser Arlen. And without a known, reputable knight to officially vouch for you, to swear before the gods that you are who you say you are, I cannot let you enter the lists."
Why are the rules so incredibly strict? Is it just pure noble snobbery?
It is definitely part snobbery, keeping the poor out, but it is also a massive security issue.
How so?
If you let any random huge guy with a sharp sword into a royal tourney, you are risking the actual lives of the royal family. They need a verifiable guarantee that you understand the civilized rules of engagement.
So Dunk is forced to go on a desperate mission around the camp to find anyone who might have known Ser Arlen.
He suddenly remembers that Arlen once took service with the Dondarrions years ago, so he tracks down their current heir, Sir Manfred Dondarrion.
And this interaction is just physically painful to witness.
He finally gets an audience with Manfred in this glorious purple pavilion. Dunk earnestly explains who he is. He explains all about Ser Arlen's loyal service.
And Manfred, he isn't even cruel about it, really. He's just totally indifferent.
He tells Dunk, look, my father took 800 different knights into the Dornish mountains for that campaign. I cannot possibly be expected to remember every single one of their names.
It completely reframes the scale of their world.
To Dunk, Ser Arlen was the absolute center of the universe. To the Dondarrion family, Arlen was just employee number 437.
Just a nameless line item on an old ledger.
Manfred dismisses him without a second thought.
So Dunk strikes out. He is walking away totally defeated. He's probably thinking, well, I guess I really am going to join the City Watch after all.
But then he wanders into the Great Hall of Ashford Castle, basically by accident. Or maybe he's just blindly looking for one last miraculous chance.
And he walks right into the middle of a private conversation.
A very heated conversation between two men who turn out to be the most important people in the realm.
We really need to contextualize these two men, because as you noted, this is basically the Star Wars cameo moment of the book.
It really is. He accidentally interrupts Baelor Breakspear and Maker Targaryen.
Okay, for any listener who doesn't actively memorize the massive Targaryen family tree, break these two brothers down for us. Who is Baelor?
Baelor Breakspear is the current crown prince. He is the hand of the king. You should think of him as the absolute paragon of what a knight should be.
He's the idea.
He is wise, he is incredibly strong in battle, and he is genuinely just. He is often remembered as the greatest king that Westeros tragically never actually had.
But visually, he doesn't fit the brand right.
Right, he doesn't look like a classic Targaryen at all. He has dark hair and dark eyes from his Dornish mother.
And what about his brother, Maekar?
Maekar is the younger brother. He definitely has the classic Valyrian look, the silver gold hair, the striking purple eyes. But personality-wise, he is the harsh, unforgiving, resentful brother.
You called him Stannis Baratheon, but a Targaryen.
Exactly. He is constantly feeling overshadowed by his perfect older brother, Baelor.
And when Dunk walks in, they are standing there arguing aggressively.
But they aren't arguing about grand politics or tax policies or upcoming wars. They are arguing about their teenage kids.
They have that incredible line about an infestation.
Yes, Baelor literally sighs and says, we seem to have an infestation of princes at this tourney.
They are actively searching for Maekar's two runaway sons.
It brilliantly grounds these mythical historical figures immediately. Before they are legendary princes, they are just annoyed, exhausted dads dealing with rebellious kids.
And dunking this massive, unwashed hedge knight just awkwardly interrupts them.
Which normally could easily have gotten him thrown in a dungeon or killed.
But Baelor actually stops and looks at him.
And when Dunk desperately mentions the name Ser Arlen of Pennytree Baelor, pauses.
He actually remembers the old man.
He smiles and says, I remember that man. I broke 4 lances against him at a great tourney at Storm's End years ago.
It is the absolute miracle Dunk needed. The hand of the king himself remembers the lowly hedge knight.
It retroactively validates Ser Arlen's entire difficult existence, but then Dunk does something that is so incredibly, essentially Dunk.
Right, Baelor says, I broke 4 lances against him. And Dunk actually interrupts the crown prince of the realm to correct his math.
He blurts out, it was 7 lances, your grace.
Can you even imagine the sudden suffocating silence in that room? You do not correct a royal dragon. Why on earth does he do it? Is he just stupid?
He's just fundamentally honest. Honest to a fatal fault. He simply cannot let the factual record be wrong, even if staying quiet would help his own cause.
But surprisingly, this is exactly why Baelor instantly likes him.
Baelor just laughs. He says tales always grow in the telling, but I remember the man well. And because he respects that raw moment of clumsy honesty, Baelor agrees to vouch for him.
He tells Plummer, the steward, I will speak for him. Those 5 words save Dunk's entire dream.
They do. But of course, in this world, there is always a catch. Baelor points out a strict legal problem with Dunk's current shield.
The old winged chalice design.
Right. The laws governing heraldry in Westeros are incredibly strict. That specific sigil legally belonged to Ser Arlen.
And Dunk is not his biological son.
He is not related by blood at all. Therefore, it is actually a crime for him to bear that painted shield in a royal tourney.
So if he wants to ride onto that field, he urgently needs to forge a brand new identity. He needs a new logo.
Which naturally leads us right to the puppet show.
This is such a lovely, quiet interlude before the violence starts. Dunk and Egg take a break and go watch a wooden puppet show in the camp. The tragedy of Florian and Jungle.
It is a famous romance, but more importantly, it is the archetypal origin story of knighthood. Flooring the Fool, who is viewed as a joke, eventually proves himself to be the greatest noble knight of all and wins the heart of the highborn Jonquil.
It perfectly mirrors Dunk's internal emotional state. He constantly feels like a clumsy fool, but he so desperately wants to be a true knight.
And while watching the show, he formally meets the puppeteer, a Dornish woman named Tansel.
Tansel too tall.
And Dunk, being nearly 7 feet tall himself, falls completely head over heels for her instantly, simply because she is the very first woman he's ever met who is actually tall enough to look him in the eye.
It's very cute, very human connection. But she says something deeply profound to him during their chat.
She tells him all men are fools and all men are knights.
She is casually deconstructing the massive, rigid class barriers that Dunk has been so obsessed with since page 1.
Exactly. She's an artist, so she sees past the rigid social titles. And practically speaking, since she is a painter, Dunk asks her to paint his new blank shield.
And they sit down and design it together. This is a crucial, character-defining moment for Dunk.
It really is. Notice what he doesn't choose. He doesn't choose a fierce lion to look tough. He doesn't choose a scary dragon or a bloody sword.
No, he chooses something incredibly peaceful. An elm tree.
Why an elm tree? Because that is exactly where he sleeps every night. That is his only shelter from the storm. It represents his humble roots, his quiet strength.
And he adds a shooting star above the tree.
Because he literally saw a bright shooting star in the sky the night before, and he decided to view it as a sign of luck, a sign of hope.
So it's an elm tree under a shooting star set against a sunset field.
Dunk knows exactly who he is. He is just a giant poor guy sitting in the mud, looking up at the distant stars, hoping for a bit of luck. It has to be the most humble, grounded, honest sigil in the entire history of Westeros heraldry.
The shooting star and the elm, it becomes iconic. So he is fully registered. He finally has his repaired armor. He has his new custom shield currently drying in the sun. He decides it's time to go scout the actual competition.
He heads over to the training grounds, and this is where Martin explicitly shows us the stark contrast in what knighthood actually means to different people. We meet the Fossaways.
The famous Happels.
The Fossaways of Cider Hall. Their family sigil is a simple red apple, and on the practice field you have Sir Stefan Fossaway and his younger cousin Raymond.
And they present this perfect, classic, good apple, bad apple dynamic.
It is a very literal visual metaphor. Sir Stefan is the red apple. He has the official title. He is an anointed knight with all the wealth and prestige.
But internally, he's a complete jerk.
He is arrogant. He is overly aggressive. He spots Dunk standing there and immediately tries to publicly goad him into a friendly sparring match.
But the audience knows he doesn't want a friendly match. He wants to severely hurt him.
He wants to batter and bruise this unknown giant before the actual tourney even begins, just to eliminate a potential wild card from the competition. He is essentially a schoolyard bully with a sharp sword.
But then there is his cousin, Raymond.
Raymond is the green apple. He is currently just a lowly squire. He openly admits he is not ripe yet.
But his behavior is entirely different.
He immediately steps in and actively apologizes for his older cousin's rude behavior. He is kind. He treats Dunk, a poor stranger, with immediate dignity and respect.
It just perfectly reinforces the central thematic argument of the book. Having the fancy title of Sir in front of your name does not automatically grant you the spirit of a true knight.
Exactly right. Stefan has the official rank, but Raymond clearly has the true spirit. Dunk immediately connects with Raymond as a kindred soul.
Okay, the stage is finally set. The great tourney in Ashford Meadow officially begins. And the structural format of this competition is a bit different from what casual sports fans might expect today.
Right. It is not a standard modern bracket system. It's not a single elimination tournament like Wimbledon where you just advance round by round.
How does it work?
It's a King of the Hill format. Or more accurately, it's called the Champions of the Lady. There are exactly 5 designated champions who sit on horses and defend the honor of the Queen of Love and Beauty.
And any challenger from the camp can ride out and pick which of the 5 they want to face.
Yes. If you manage to defeat one of the standing champions, you take his physical place on the stage, and then you have to defend that spot against the next wave of challengers.
It creates incredibly high stakes. Who are the initial 5 champions starting out on day 1?
You have the 2 local boys, Andrew and Robert Ashford, whose father is hosting the event. Then you have Leo Tyrell, the Lord of Highgarden, who is an absolute legend with a heavy lance.
You have Humphrey Harding, who is just a very solid, dependable, seasoned fighter.
And finally, taking the 5th spot, you have Valar Targaryen.
Prince Valar.
Yeah.
The direct son of Baelor Breakspear, the heir to the heir.
The young prince. And Dunk, sitting in the crowd, notices something very interesting when Valar takes the field to ride.
He notices that Valar wins. A lot.
He wins constantly, but the matches themselves look incredibly weird to a trained eye. Opposing men seem to inexplicably miss him at the last second. Their horses suddenly shy away from the contact. Dunk slowly starts to suspect that these supposedly fierce knights are actively throwing the matches.
Because logically, you really do not want to be the random guy who accidentally puts a splinter of wood through the eye of the king's beloved grandson.
Precisely. It is the medieval equivalent of the executive game. You always let the CEO win at golf. So outwardly, Valar looks completely invincible to the cheering peasants, but it is entirely an illusion of power created by his royal status.
Now contrast that cautious political display with the other massive standout of the day. Sir Lionel Baratheon.
The laughing storm.
This guy is just pure, unadulterated adrenaline.
He really is. He doesn't just fight well, he actively loves the sheer chaos of fighting. He booms with laughter when he takes a heavy hit. He laughs even harder when he smashes you into the dirt.
He actually knocks the decorative crests off his opponent's helmets and then dramatically throws them into the screaming crowd as souvenirs.
He is the ultimate crowd favorite. If Valar represents the cautious politics of the event, Lionel represents the pure, joyous sport of it, the raw joy of consensual violence.
Right, so the long day goes on. Huge, heavy lances violently shatter. Sharp wooden splinters fly into the stands. Exhausted men fall into the dirt. It's an incredible sensory spectacle.
But as the sun finally starts to set, casting these long shadows over the field, the entire mood of the festival violently shifts.
The heralds blow their horns to announce a brand new challenger taking the field.
Enter Prince Aerion.
Aerion Brightflame. Let's position him for the listener. If Baelor is the perfect Superman of this era, and Maekar is the brooding Stannis figure, who exactly is Aerion?
The best shorthand is that Aerion is Joffrey Baratheon, but fully grown and armed with a deadly lance. He is Maekar's son. Physically, he is striking. He is beautiful, tall, slim, with perfect silver-gold Valyrian hair.
But internally, he is deeply, profoundly unstable and incredibly flamboyant in his presentation.
His armor sounds completely insane on the page. It is coated in bright red enamel shaped like licking flames. His massive shield depicts a multi-headed dragon breathing actual fire.
Even his war horse is draped in layers of expensive red silk.
He looks like a walking, breathing fire hazard stepping onto the field.
But it isn't just his intense visual look that sets people off. It is his entire arrogant vibe. He completely ignores all the play formalities of the event.
He rides out, barely gives a perfunctory salute to the royal box, and immediately challenges Sir Humphrey Harding.
Now remember, Sir Humphrey has been fighting off challengers all day long.
He is physically exhausted, he's battered, but honor dictates he must accept the challenge from a royal prince.
And here is where our deep dive gets genuinely dark. Because up until this exact second, this entire event has been a controlled sporting event. Extremely violent, yes, but strictly governed by mutually agreed-upon rules.
The ancient code of chivalry is the only thing holding this violent society together. The rules are clear. You aim your lance for the opponent's shield, you try to cleanly unhorse the rider, you absolutely do not kill anyone unless it is a freak, tragic accident.
So they lined up at opposite ends of the tilt, the starting flags drop, they spur their horses and charge.
And Egg Dunk's little squire, Egg, reacts in a way that changes everything.
This is such a chilling key moment.
Egg is sitting high up on Dunk's wide shoulders just to see over the crowd. And as the bright red Prince Aerion charges down the lane, Egg suddenly clamps his little legs tightly around Dunk's neck, and he starts screaming.
What does this 8-year-old child scream at the top of his lungs?
He screams, "Kill him! Kill him!"
That is deeply disturbing, coming from a supposedly random peasant stable boy.
It's genuinely startling for Dunk. He's thinking, why does this random kid hate a royal prince with such murderous intensity? But before Dunk can even process that thought or ask a question, the physical impact happens on the field.
Aerion cheats.
He cheats in the absolute worst, most dishonorable way possible. As the two horses close the final distance, Aerion suddenly violently shifts his aim.
He doesn't aim high for the wooden shield. He forcibly lowers the heavy tip of his lance.
He aims directly for Humphrey's horse.
Which is the ultimate unforgivable taboo in this culture. A trained war horse costs an absolute fortune, but much more importantly than the money, Durnsey. The horse is an innocent, non-consenting participant in their bloody games. You simply do not intentionally kill the animal in a sporting joust.
But Arion does, and Martin's description of the impact is incredibly visceral and upsetting to read. The heavy steel-tipped lance drives straight into the horse's neck.
It pierces so deeply it actually bursts out the back of the animal's neck.
The horse instantly screams, and the text really emphasizes that specific sound. A high, piercing, terrible scream of pure agony. The massive animal's legs buckle, and it violently crashes down into the hard dirt.
And in that chaotic high-speed fall, the sheer crushing weight of the dying horse rolls completely over Sir Humphrey Harding's leg.
You hear the wet snap of thick bone breaking. The knight is screaming in agony. The dying horse is thrashing and screaming. It instantly turns this beautiful royal pageant into a horrific, bloody slaughterhouse.
And how does the massive crowd react to this?
Total dead silence at first, and then just mounting horror, because every single experienced person in those stands saw the exact angle of that lance. This was absolutely not an accident.
Everyone saw the heavy tip intentionally go down. Arion did it on purpose just to inflict pain.
And the absolute worst part, he isn't even done yet.
No, he isn't. The horrific trash isn't enough for him.
He calmly climbs off his own unharmed horse. He smoothly draws his razor-sharp longsword, and he starts stalking across the dirt toward the fallen screaming knight.
He is literally going to execute him right there, while the poor man is helplessly trapped in the dirt underneath his own thrashing dead horse.
Yes. It is pure psychotic behavior.
How is he stopped?
It takes his own royal squire sprinting out onto the field in a total panic, physically grabbing his arms and violently restraining him to stop a public murder. They have to physically drag the prince away from the wreckage.
And just like that, the day abruptly ends. The sun finally goes down over the meadow. The festive, joyful atmosphere is completely permanently gone.
The entire mood has curdled into sickness. Dunk is slowly walking back to his quiet camp under the elm tree, and he has to somehow explain this horrific brutality to Egg.
Or, more accurately, he has to try and process the trauma of it himself.
Exactly. Dunk grew up deeply believing in the sweet songs. He believed in Florian and Jonquil. He believed in true noble knights protecting the innocent.
And he just stood there and watched a beautiful prince of the royal blood commit a horrific public atrocity for absolutely no reason other than cruelty.
And he got away with it. That is the heavy, unspoken horror hanging over the camp that night. Arion is not immediately arrested by the guards. He is not officially disqualified from the games.
Because he's a royal prince. Who in that camp is realistically going to tell him no?
Nobody with any sense of self-preservation.
And poor Sir Humphrey is just lying in a dark healing tent somewhere, his leg completely shattered, screaming in pain.
This tragic event brilliantly brings us to the absolute core conflict of the novella, and honestly the core philosophical conflict of George R.R. Martin's entire body of work.
The massive glaring disparity between the romanticized idea of knighthood,
Right, the vows of protection, honor, and valor.
and the brutal, grim reality of absolute unchecked power.
Tensel's beautiful little puppet show gave us the romance we all want to believe in, but Arion on the field just gave us the ugly, bleeding reality.
And poor Dunk is squarely caught right in the middle of this ideological war.
He is just a giant, uneducated guy with a frayed rope belt and a freshly painted wooden shield who genuinely actually believes in the old songs.
But he is waking up to the fact that he is living in Arion's terrifying world.
It perfectly sets the stage for the massive conflict to come. Because by this point in the story, we know Dunk's character.
We know he absolutely cannot just keep his head down and ignore injustice.
He claims to be thick as a castle wall, but he possesses a deep, fundamental knowledge of right from wrong.
And in a world this deeply corrupt and hierarchical, knowing right from wrong and acting on it is an incredibly dangerous thing to do.
It really raises the ultimate question of the text. If the entire game is rigged from the start, if the High Lords and the referees actively work to protect the vicious cheaters, why should a good man even bother playing the game?
Maybe because you're the only one who doesn't know how to do anything else.
Or maybe because someone somewhere has to actually step up and protect the weak, even if the odds are completely impossible.
I think we are going to have to leave it right there for today.
It's a heavy place to stop, but it's the perfect cliffhanger.
It really is. This was just the setup, the first act of the story. In our next deep dive, we are going to cover the massive explosive incident that changes everything for Dunk.
We'll be breaking down the brutal trial by 7, the chaos of the melee.
And we will finally reveal the true hidden identity of the little bald boy named Egg.
The political and physical stakes get much, much higher from here on out.
I honestly cannot wait to get into it. Thank you so much for listening to this deep dive into the Hedge Knight. Let us know your thoughts. Would you have had the heart to sell Sweetfoot the horse?
And as always, keep a very close eye out for red dragons.
See you next time.